June 2020. A private jet lifts off from a small airfield in Austria. The man on board is the chief operating officer of one of Germany's most valuable companies. He has told his colleagues he is flying to Manila to find the missing money. He is not flying to Manila. The plane turns east toward Belarus, and Jan Marsalek disappears off the face of the earth. 5 years later, a court in London convicts a ring of spies he had been running from Moscow. People who had followed investigative journalists through British streets. People who had watched Ukrainian soldiers training at a base in Germany. He wasn't only a fraudster on the run, he was a Russian asset. And the company he helped build, worth 24 billion euros, a member of Germany's most elite stock index, the nation's proudest tech champion, turned out to have a hole in it where 1.9 billion euros was supposed to be. Money that was never there. Bank confirmation letters that were forged. This is Wirecard, how a payment company from a Munich suburb fooled a bank, a regulator, and an entire country, while the man running its shadows was working for the other side. Germany doesn't do tech giants. It does cars, machines, chemicals. So when a company from the town of Aschheim started printing money on the internet, the whole country wanted to believe. Wirecard processed payments, the invisible plumbing between your card and a merchant's bank. Boring on paper, but its numbers were anything but. Revenue doubling, then doubling again. Expansion into Asia, the Middle East, everywhere. And at the top, a chief executive officer who looked the part, Markus Braun, an Austrian in a black turtleneck, quoting Data and Destiny like he was auditioning for the role of Europe's Steve Jobs. In September 2018, Wirecard did the unthinkable. It was added to the DAX, Germany's index of blue-chip giants, kicking out Commerzbank, a bank founded in 1870. A 20-year-old payments firm was now worth more than Deutsche Bank. On paper, Markus Braun was a billionaire. Analysts screamed buy, pension funds piled in. The German financial press called critics unpatriotic. Behind Braun stood his opposite, the chief operating officer, Jan Marsalek. Charming, secretive, always on a plane. While Braun sold the vision, Marsalek ran the shadows, the Asian subsidiaries, the mysterious partners, the deals nobody else was allowed to see. The story was perfect, too perfect. Here's how you fake a fortune. Wirecard claimed a huge chunk of its profit came from something called third-party acquiring, outsourcing payment processing to partner companies in places like Dubai and the Philippines. Wirecard said these partners handled billions in transactions and passed back the profits. There was just one problem. Many of those partners were tiny. One was run out of a family home in Manila. The billions in transactions flowing through them, largely invented, typed into spreadsheets, not earned in the real world. But invented profits create a real hole. If the money isn't real, where is it? So Wirecard invented an answer too. It claimed the cash, that 1.9 billion euros, was sitting safely in trustee accounts at 2 Philippine banks. Audited, confirmed, locked away. None of it was there. The confirmation letters were forged. For years, roughly a quarter of Wirecard's balance sheet was cash that existed only as ink on a fake document. And the man orchestrating the Asian operations, the partners, the trustee, was Jan Marsalek. Every fraud has one person who won't stop asking questions. For Wirecard, it was a reporter at the Financial Times named Dan McCrum. Starting in 2015, McCrum dug into Wirecard's numbers and found holes everywhere. Over years, the FT published story after story, the suspicious partners, the impossible profits, the missing cash. It was, in hindsight, one of the greatest pieces of financial journalism ever written. And here's the part that should terrify you. It didn't matter. Wirecard didn't just deny it, it counterattacked. It hired private investigators to surveil the journalists. And then the establishment did something almost unbelievable. Germany's financial regulator, BaFin, the watchdog whose entire job is catching fraud, looked at the accusations and the falling share price and banned investors from short-selling Wirecard stock, a protection never granted to a single company before. Then it filed a criminal complaint against the FT journalists, accusing them of market manipulation. Let that sink in. The regulator investigated the reporters instead of the fraud. The country was so proud of its tech champion that it defended the LIE and attacked the truth. For a while, it worked. The stock recovered. McCrum was called a liar. Wirecard sued. The machine had beaten journalism, regulation, and reality. It only had one enemy left: math. By 2020, the pressure forced Wirecard to hire KPMG for a special audit. KPMG went looking for the profits from those Asian partners and couldn't verify that most of them existed. But the killing blow came from the one number the company could no longer hide: the $1.9 billion in the Philippines. June 18, 2020. Ernst & Young refuses to sign Wirecard's accounts because the two Philippine banks won't confirm the cash. The company admits the money is missing. June 19th, Markus Braun resigns, and that same week, the jet we started with leaves the ground. Marsalek tells colleagues he is going to Manila to recover the money. The plane turns east instead, and one of the two men who built Wirecard is simply gone. June 22nd. Wirecard admits the $1.9 billion likely does not exist. Police arrest Markus Braun. June 25th. Wirecard files for insolvency, the first company in the history of Germany's blue-chip index to collapse into bankruptcy. 24 billion euros in value, gone. Creditors are left holding a hole of roughly 3.1 billion euros. A national champion, dead in 9 days. The wreckage was staggering. Retail investors who believed the patriotic story were wiped out. BaFin's president was forced out. The regulator was humiliated in front of the world. Germany's reputation for rules and rigor took a hit it's still recovering from. And Markus Braun? In December 2022, he went on trial in Munich, the biggest fraud case in post-war German history. His defense is brazen. He says he is the victim, that the real criminal is the fugitive Jan Marsalek, who ran a fraud around him without his knowledge. The prosecution's star witness tells a different story, a former executive turned crown witness who points straight at Braun. As of this summer, 2026, after more than 3 years, the marathon trial is finally nearing its verdict. But the man at the center of it all still isn't in that courtroom. Jan Marsalek is gone, and where he went changes this story completely. Which brings us back to where we started. Marsalek didn't just flee a fraud. Investigators now say he had been living a double life for years. The constant flights, the contacts nobody could explain. While he was cooking Wirecard's books, he was also working for Russian intelligence. After his jet left Germany, Marsalek surfaced in Moscow under the protection of the Russian state. And from there, according to Western prosecutors, he ran a SPY ring. Using a network of Bulgarian agents based in Britain, Marsalek directed surveillance operations, targeting investigative journalists, Russian dissidents, and even Ukrainian soldiers being trained at a base in Germany. In 2025, a London court convicted the ring. Its leader was jailed for nearly 11 years. The members drew roughly 50 years between them. Messages in court showed Marsalek in Moscow referencing meetings with the GRU and the FSB, Russia's military and state intelligence services. The chief operating officer of a German blue-chip company was, all along, a Russian asset. The $1.9 billion fraud wasn't just theft, it was tangled up with espionage. So here's the lesson of Wirecard, and it's bigger than money. The loudest badge of legitimacy is often the best place to hide a lie. A spot on the national index, a regulator's protection, a patriotic press. Wirecard had all three. and used every one of them as cover. Trust the number, not the badge. Follow the cash, not the flag, because sometimes the fraud isn't hiding from the establishment. Sometimes the establishment is the disguise. Next episode, one man, one apartment, and a number in a computer that grew for almost 40 years until it hit $65 billion. The biggest Ponzi scheme in history. That story is Bernie Madoff. Subscribe to Finovec so you don't miss it. I'm Marcus Webb. Follow the money.